You know who I am?
Anything you say. Anything you say.
What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Thomas back again with another rendition of Truth Be Told. Now, this past week, all they've been talking about in the news is the whole, the U.S. bombs Iran for their nuclear facilities where they were trying to build nuclear bombs, and they shouldn't have nuclear bombs. They made a treaty with us that they would not build nuclear bombs, and they've gone against it. So, regardless of what you think of us going to war with them or whatever, he did the right thing. He stopped them from making nuclear weapons. I'm not against the people, it's the governments that I can't stand. And the Iranian government, they literally sponsor terrorist groups. So, whatever you want to say about the people's fine, but the government's, that's a bad government, pretty much. But anyways, that's all I saw that was really huge. I didn't see anything really new coming out as far as movies and stuff. There's a few things, but nothing major. Nothing I'm really interested in seeing. I understand that they just came out with that, 28 years later. Eventually, here pretty soon, I'll get around to watching that and getting a review on it, but not just yet. So as I've said before, even if you don't watch the channel regularly and you've only seen a couple videos or you don't watch it at all, it only takes 2 seconds to hit that subscribe button. It doesn't affect you or your channel whatsoever. It just helps this channel grow. So please subscribe. Also, I have another channel. It's called Easy Does It. The link is in the About section. Check it out if you like gaming vlogs and reviews and reactions to other YouTube channels. Okay. Again, subscribe. Let's get on to what I really want to talk to you about. Like I said, I've got lots of stuff, backed up to where, I've got to get it done and get it out in these videos. But I've got a lot of stuff I got to go over and get out on these videos. I'm backed up a little bit, so with TV shows and movies. But so this week, we're going to go over season 3 of the television show called Monsters. It's an anthology TV show. That's why I'm doing it like this. I've already done a few episodes of season 1, season 2. But because it's an anthology series, you can't do it based on the entire show or the season, an entire season, because each episode is like a different story. So you kind of have to go over every individual episode. that's the problem with doing an anthology series. It's like eventually I'll get around to doing like the Twilight Zone series, but my gosh, that's a lot to do, because it went on and on and on for a long ass time, and that's not including the newer versions. You know, like you have the old like 60s version, then you've got the 80s version, then you got the 90s version, and you got the 2000 version. You know, so you get what I'm getting at with that. So let's get started. See, we're on season 3 now, and I'm gonna go over episodes 1 through 8. Now, the first episode was called Stressed Environment. And what goes on is there's this female scientist with a little help from a few other assistants. She creates a group of intelligent rats. And they basically just turn on her. And they kill everybody in the lab. And they basically kill her. They try to make it seem like they were interested in making peace with her towards the end, but then they kill her off. And they figured a way to get out of the building. So that's going to cause problems in the future. But that's what that episode was about. The second episode was called Murray's Monster. Now, Murray is a patient of this doctor, or psychiatrist, who wants to get rid of his wife. And Murray kind of turns into a real monster when he gets upset or some shit. So he tries to sick him on his wife. What ends up happening is she likes the guy, and they kind of start an affair, and then Murray ends up actually killing him instead. And then the third episode is called Bug House. Now this one was a little weird. It was strange. There's a guy, there's two girls, they're both sisters. One comes to visit the other sister because she thinks something's up because she hadn't heard from her for a while. Well, she's shacked up with this guy who's really weird. And he's got her pregnant, and she don't want whatever he wants. She like practically worships this dude. You know, he can't do anything wrong, blah, blah, blah. She's constantly wanting to have sex with him because she says her pregnancy, you know, it hurts her. So she's constantly wanting to have, it's the only way she doesn't feel, you know, any pain. Well, come to find out, he's like some type of humanoid bug, giant bug or some shit, and he's impregnated her with his batch. Well, the sister, she ends up, you know, having sex with the dude too, and then she ends up getting impregnated, and his first batch, kills the other sister and eats her, and then she knows that's the fate for her as well, but she doesn't care, and you know that's what ends up happening anyway. It's a weird episode. The fourth one is called Cellmates. Now this one guy, he ends up, you know, he's like, I can't think of the name of the town in Mexico where all the prostitutes are at. all the, the college kids go to. I can't think of that place. But anyways, he goes to something similar. He ends up getting drunk or some shit, and the Mexican government or cops catch him and throw him in prison. Well, in this one weird little town in Mexico. Well, in this one weird little town, they have this legendary monster or whatever. He ends up being thrown in jail next to him, and the Mexican police know about it, and he ends up becoming dinner for the monster. Next one is called Outpost. There's a female, I'm not sure what you would call her. She checks up on these genetically enhanced humans who are stuck on these outposts on like moons or stations, space stations or whatever. And she goes through and checks up on them for this company she works for. Well, supposedly the one that she's doing in this episode is actually her husband, who she thought was dead. The company lied to her and kidnapped him and turned him into this monster or this genetic being. Well, on this particular planet or moon or whatever, he's hearing some kind of species talk to him and call him to join him or whatever, blah blah blah. He leaves and joins them and leaves her alone. It's kind of it didn't make any sense. It wasn't a real good episode. And then the next one's called The Hole. Basically, you have 3 Vietnam soldiers go into the tunnels in Vietnam looking for Charlie, and then instead they run into zombies. Is basically what it is. Zombies killed the Vietnam soldiers in the tunnel, and then ends up killing them. The next one is called Small Blessing. Basically, this couple has a baby that literally has fangs and weird bug eyes and shit. And the mother, she's freaking out. She just don't know how to take care of this monster baby. The couple looks normal, but the baby's like monstrous looking, like a little demon or something. Anyways, there's a serial killer running around loose in the neighborhood, which is played by David Spade, of all people. But anyways, he comes to visit her one day, and he almost kills her, but the baby interferes and kills him instead. And then she starts loving the baby. Blah blah blah. It was kind of dumb. But anyways, and then the 8th one, the last one, is called Shave and a Haircut, 2 Bites. Basically, you have 2 teenagers played by, what's his name, Joey McEnroe or whatever the hell his name is from Friends, the guy Joey or whatever, and the other dude is Will Wheaton. You might know him from Star Trek as, Crusher. But anyways, they think that this barber shop is being ran by 2 vampires. So they go over there, sneak over there, break in, and they try looking for evidence that it's being ran by vampires. And they do find a little bit of evidence, but nothing solid or concrete. Until the 2 vampires show up, take him downstairs, introduce him to not a vampire, but some alien looking slug who, in return for human blood, he spits out some of his own little saliva or some shit that they can drink, and it keeps them, they don't become immortal, but they live a very, very long time, like elves, if they drink the saliva. It's weird. It was weird. I was just like, this is so dumb and stupid. It's weird. But anyways, that's the first 8 episodes. I'll get to the rest later. Let's get on to your B. I'm telling you, Monsters, the TV show, some of the episodes are just bizarre. I mean, really bizarre. Some of them are okay, others are just flat out bizarre. Makes no sense. And then some of them are just flat out stupid. They're just dumb. And they're all shot like, you know, a soap opera would be shot. It's that type of quality. Alright, anyways, let's get on to your B-movie reviews. Okay, movie holics, this week is Action Week. Now, most of you who have been watching my video, you know I am not into westerns at all. I just don't care for them. I think the only western I ever really watched that I remember is Young Guns. I don't even remember the sequel really that much. I know I had to deal with him being old or whatever and recounting something that happened to him when he was, you know, running from the law. But other than that, that's all I remember of the second one. But the first one was really good. I remember it. And I think I've seen some of a couple of Clint's spaghetti westerns, but I don't, like Fistful of Dollars. I kind of half-assed remember it, and The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. But pretty much, I don't watch westerns. Very rare. It just, I never got into the whole Wild Wild West thing. But they are considered action flicks. And I just figured, what the hell, why not? You know, I'll watch a couple westerns and see if I like them. So I went ahead, and I knew I'd probably, you know, if I'm going to watch a western, it'd probably be Clint Eastwood, one of his. So I watched a couple of his more well-known movies. So the first one was done in 1970. Only made about $5 million. And it starred Clint Eastwood and Shirley MacLaine, and it was called Two Mules for Sister Sara. Now, the story is not sure if you recall, he's kind of a mercenary drifter or whatever, and he runs across Sister Sara, or who he thinks is Sister Sara. He runs across this woman being hounded by 3 Mexican bandits. Well, he saves her and kills them. You know, just shoots them. Really wasn't a gunfight. And then he tells her that, you know, he's trying to find this French outpost. I guess the French and the Mexicans are at war, and the French army is around. He wants to go to this outpost and steal their gold. And he's made a deal with the Mexican government to help them take this outpost, and then he gets the gold. He gets the spoils. So she decides to join him and go along with him, supposedly. Even though she's claiming she's going a different way. So he sticks with her and helps her out along the way. Now, they really don't, I don't know how to put this, they avoid a squad of Frenchmen who are patrolling the area. They avoid them. And then they run across a group of, I can't remember what tribe they were. A tribe of Native Americans. I'm not sure if they were Comanche or something else. I might have been maybe thinking of the other movie. But they run, no, what'd she call them? I can't remember. It was a weird name. I can't remember. But they run across a group of Native Americans. They shoot him with an arrow. She has to get out the arrow by getting him. He gets drunk so she can pull out the arrow. And he tells her how to, you know, cauterize the wound and blah, blah, blah. And he's, the whole time she's with him, he's making comments about wanting to sleep with her. But anyways, they find the Mexican army. Oh, well, before that, there's a train coming through with supplies, and they want to stop the train from supplying the French army. So they blow up a bridge that the train is supposed to go across, and it falls down. They have a little bit of trouble because he's drunk when they do it, shooting the dynamite, but it eventually happens. And then they find the Mexican army, and it's a really, he only has a few men, like 30 men or some shit like that, but they want to take the French outpost. He gets a few more men. He gets it up to like 100 men. They go around collecting some gold from a nearby village so they can go get more dynamite to fight the French, which they do. They make this elaborate plan. They go in and they decimate the French army with dynamite and stuff. And this is where Clint finds out towards the end that she's actually a whore. She's not a sister. She's not a nun. She's actually a whore from a whorehouse. But anyways, he decides he's going to share the gold with her, and he takes her with him at the very end. And she's all dudded up and got tons of baggage and blah, just a pain in the ass. But he takes her anyway, and that's the end of the movie. It was a little bit silly. It was just enough to keep me entertained and watch, because it's kind of funny in some places. But as far as action goes, they only did a little bit of fighting at the very end where they took the French outpost. So as far as action goes, it kind of fell flat with the action part. It was more of like a Western comedy than it was anything else. I mean, it was an alright movie for a one-time watch, but it wasn't spectacular or anything like that. This was supposed to be one of his better ones. I give it a thumbs up, thumbs down. It was okay for a Western, I guess. Let's move on to the next one. Now, this is probably one of his most famous ones, and it was called The Outlaw of Josey Wales. Now, it stars him, and for whatever reason, he loved putting his wife in a shit ton of his movies. So Sandra Locke was in this as well. It was done in 1976, and it made roughly about 31 million, which that was pretty good for back then in the 70s. That was actually pretty decent box office numbers. But anyways, this story is basically done right at the end of the Civil War. The Union is trying to round up the last of the Confederate soldiers. But not necessarily Confederate soldiers, but like the guerrilla Confederate soldiers, the little groups of men who are fighting for the Confederacy, but weren't really a part of the army. And Josey Wales happens to be one of these. At the beginning of the movie, their commander's telling them, hey, you go down here, the Union says they're going to pardon you as long as you swear fealty to the United States. And then you're done, one and done, you're part of the United States and you're no longer fighting in a war that's supposedly over. By his commanding officer, this guy named Fletcher. So, all the men in the group, they go down there, but Josey Wales says, fuck that. Not after the shit they pulled. They killed his wife and his son, so he's like, no, I'll never forgive him for that shit. So they go down there to the camp, and the camp murders all of them, kills them all, lies to them. And Fletcher, the guy who brought him in there, he didn't realize that that's what they were going to do. But he's the one who brought him in. So he's blamed for it. Come to find out, there's a ragtag group that was working for the Union. They're basically mercenaries too. And they wear these like red skin leggings, and they call themselves like regulators or some shit. Red regulators or some shit like that. I can't remember. Anyways, none of the men like them. They hate them because they're the ones who went around killing people, including Josey Wales' family. Well, Josey Wales goes down there and he kills a bunch of them with one of their machine guns. During the Civil War, they came out with these big, massive looking machine guns, and he used one of them on him. There's a kid in the group. He's like 18 or whatever. He's real young, and he gets shot when they're trying to escape. Along the way, he kind of dies off pretty early on, He sticks with them for a little bit, but he dies on. Now, the regulators are hunting Josey Wales, and eventually, Josey Wales runs into this old-ass Indian who he pretty much travels with for the remainder of the movie. They become like best friends or whatever, even though they give each other shit constantly. Along the way, he also runs across a Navajo woman who joins them, but she don't speak any English, so half the time he don't even know what she's saying, and the Indian has to interpret her, or the old Native American guy, he has to interpret what she's saying most of the time, even though he's like, I think he said he was Cherokee or something like that. But anyways, that's the majority of the movie until they get to this town down south. I can't remember where they were. I think they're in California or Arizona or some shit. I don't remember. They don't quite make it to Mexico. Anyways, he's talking to a few guys in this saloon in this deserted town. Maybe it was Nevada or some shit. I can't remember, because they kept mentioning silver mines and that they dried up and all the townsfolk left. But he's talking to like 3 or 4 guys, and you know, one of the saloon whores. That's all that's there, that's left of the town. Now, just before they get there, Clint takes out like 7 or 8 guys. There's a little gunfight, or Josey Wells, Clint's character. He kills like 6 or 7 guys that were causing troubles. They kidnapped the old Indian, and they kidnapped an old woman from like Utah or some shit like that, and her daughter, which is Sandra Locke. He kills a bunch of those dudes and then takes their shit and helps the old lady and her daughter, and then the regulators, they're still hunting him, but there are also a couple bounty hunters that are hunting him as well. He kills one of the bounty hunters. The other bounty hunter joins up with the regulators, the red-legged regulator guys or whatever. Anyways, they eventually catch up to him. They start this little, I don't know what would you call it, a little community or whatever, out in the middle of nowhere. He strikes a deal with the Comanche. That's who was in this one, is the Comanches. He strikes a deal with the Comanche, you know. You leave us alone, we'll give you, every year we'll give you some cattle or some shit, you know, for letting us stay on your land, and we'll live in peace, you know, just this little group. And the leader of the main warrior, he's called Tin Bears or whatever, makes an agreement with them and says, okay, we'll honor that deal. And then you know, the regulators eventually show up, and they have this big old shootout or whatever, Josey Wells and the others, you know, and he eventually kills the guy who killed his family at the very beginning of the movie. And then Fletcher, he goes to town. Fletcher shows up. He's been shot, by the way, from the gunfight. And he goes to town, and Fletcher's there with two Rangers, 2 Texas Rangers who are looking for him. And the town folk, the guys who were in the saloon when he first got there, they tell him that Josey Wells died. So does the saloon whore. She tells him that too. So they sign an affidavit. I can't even say it. They sign that paper. It says that, you know, he's dead. And then Fletcher says, I don't think he's dead. I think he's still alive. And they notice each other, but Fletcher makes it to where, you know, he says, I'm going to go to Mexico. I bet he ran down there. I'm going to look for him there. All I need to know is that he knows that the war is over. And then he leaves, and that's the end of the movie. Clint stays with Sandra Locke, and you know, they have this little love thing going on, and that's the end of the movie. Like I said, most of the movie was him running around with the, you know, the old Native American guy, you know. That's mainly the main part of the movie. And two, I would have taken the dadgum Navajo chick over Sandra Locke. Even though Sandra Locke's a decent looking woman, I would have taken the Navajo girl was far better looking. Plus she claimed that she was his, but yet she turns around and starts screwing the old Native American dude, which made no sense, you know. He's like 40 years older than her, so whatever. It was kind of weird, but anyways, I know some of you are going to hate me for this, but I didn't think it was all that great. It was okay, but really wasn't like action-packed. He shoots a few guys, but there's not really a you know, a major gunfight until the very end of the movie. And I've noticed that with westerns. It's like nothing really happens till the very end. You know, you might have a killing here and there. You know, he kills a couple of dudes on the way, but anyway, some of you may hate me for this, but I didn't think it was all that great. It was alright. Wasn't bad. It just wasn't super spectacular, really great. I'd give it a thumbs up and a thumbs down. It was alright, but it wasn't all that great. That's all I have for you this week. If you could think of anything that you think was underrated or never even heard of, or you know, you think was B-rated, then leave your suggestions down in the comment section down below. I'll get to reviewing them as soon as I can. If you have any thoughts about what I talked about earlier in the video, please leave your thoughts down in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear from you. So until next time, I told you you'd be told the truth, and you've just been told.